It's a beautiful evening. Welcome to Sports Extraordinary here on Atlantic Television Network. My name is Ekpo Temple. On today's edition of the show, we'll take a look at the happenings in the NBA. Not forgetting that it is the eve of Christmas and a lot of anticipation. And so we'll go to club side. We have some stories that are popping out and a lot of talking points. And at this time of the year, we'll take a reflection back to all big stories that have happened. And of course, we'll share into some of these amazing stories that, enhance it's going to be a roller coaster ride here with me here, with you out there, and of course the show promises to be mind-blowing. We are going to short break now, but when we come back, we have more for you this evening here on Atlantic Television Network. Alright, welcome back. If you're just joining us, this is Sports Extraordinary here on Atlantic Television Network. And of course, we'll start from the home scene where Nigeria currently prepares for cricket, World Cup. It's the time of the year where we start preparation. And one of the federations, obviously, that have been very exceptional in terms of the preparation for tournaments has been the Nigerian Cricket Federation. And the Yellow Female Greens are preparing to have their final campaign ahead of next year's ICC Under-19 Women's World Cup in India. Nigeria qualified for the tournament, which will be played in Malaysia from January 8th to February 2nd by winning the Africa Zone B, competition. And from there, we've seen them blossom and a lot of preparation, ahead of that particular one. Nigeria won that game in Kigali, Division 1 title, and the Under-19 girls now will now have the time to prepare massively at the High Performance Center in Benin City, Edo State. According to the NCF, that's the Nigerian Cricket Federation, the team will resume training in Lagos on December 27, just 2 days from now, proceeding to India for a 10-day campaign. It is the second time Nigeria will qualify for any Cricket World Cup. The first time they did so was back then when the Under-19 team also defied the odds to qualify for the World Cup in South Africa in 2019. Ahead of the appearance we're going to have next year, which is the second of its kind, the NCF has announced a strong 15-man squad for the tournament in Malaysia. In Malaysia, they will play in Group C alongside New Zealand, South Africa, and Samoa. And their first match will be against Samoa on January 8th before facing New Zealand 2 days later, and then South Africa, as time progresses. The ICC Under-19 Women's T20 World Cup is the second edition of the tournament with India as the defending champion of this one. So we'll keep our finger crossed and see how far it goes. And one thing very interesting is that we want to really see how our girls will prepare for this massive one. But let's move now straight to the NBA. A lot has happened in the NBA in recent time, and I just want to take a look at obviously some of the results of games that were played today, as yesterday, but Nigerian time today. We'll start from the NBA regular season. The NBA Cup is still on. We're yet to get the finals, the winners of this particular one. But let's take a look at the game that was played in at the Spectrum Center. That game was between Charlotte Hornets and the Houston Rockets, and that game saw 19,134 spectators in that encounter. Let's take a look at how the game played. That we saw a lot of amazing insights. We saw in the first quarter of that encounter where Charlotte Hornets had 15 as against 31 points of the Houston Rockets. In the second quarter, Houston Rockets maintained at 31 points as against 16 of the Charlotte Hornets. In the third quarter, Charlotte Hornets had a better point margin, 35 as against 30 of Houston Rockets, and then we saw 35 as against 22 of Houston Rockets, same, and that was how but then it's just slim margin, just possibly 13 points difference between the both sides. And if you look at how that one pound that, it won't be surprising to know that a lot is really happening in the NBA, especially at this Euro-type period where expectations are high and the guys are not slacking one bit to write their name, in gold. If you look at the NBA as it stands now, you look at the way the NBA is fashioned out in the Western and the Eastern Conference. One thing very striking is to know that we have Cleveland Cavaliers not doing badly at all in the standing. And so, but first off, before we even look at the margins, let's go back to the games played so that you can understand. Houston Rockets are seated carefully in the Western Conference, the Eastern Conference, and for them, they have to do a whole lot if they must write a name in gold. It's still the season, and so a lot of anticipation. They are not seated badly at all. They are seated second in the Western Conference. They have won so far. They have won 20 games. Of course, they also lost the one against Charlotte Hornets. So if you look plus or minus, it tells you how good they can be. But somehow you need to be at your best. They are playing not less than 82 games this season, and that tells that every time, almost every two days, they have a game to play. But so for them, they are seated. They have lost us 9 games this season, and that's very interesting to get to see how far they go. For Houston Rockets, they themselves too are not doing badly at all in the Western Conference. They have everything going for them. They are trying to move on. The Charlotte Hornets, they themselves are also not sitting. They're not slacking back at all. When you have Rockets in the second position, and then you have Thunders, in the first place. So a lot of anticipation for that big one. But then one thing very striking too is to look at for the margins, the margin of play, how far things have been, how well it has been to expectation. But like I said, Charlotte Hornets, we are a better side, even if they try to hold that game at the Spectrum Center. That was our home ground, but they lost to Houston Rockets. Houston Rockets not doing badly at all in the Western Conference. Let's move away from that game and let's look at other games that were played. Another game that is eye-catching is Cleveland Cavaliers. For Cleveland Cavaliers, if you look at they themselves and the Utah Jazz, if you look at the standing, you first of all look at how far the Utah Jazz, the Jazz King, they are not doing so well. They are 14th on the Western Conference. That's the Utah Jazz. And then the Cleveland, they themselves too, they are also trying to meet up expectations, in the Eastern Conference. And so when you look at the both sides, it just tells you one thing, that the NBA is getting hot by the day. You will be surprised to know that teams like Pistons are even ahead of Toronto Raptors. That tells you how dynamic the NBA can be. But let's look at the result of that game that was played in Cleveland at the Rocket Field House. That game had 19,432 spectators watching that encounter, and it ended 124-113 in favor of the Cleveland Cavaliers. Cleveland Cavaliers are one of the best sides in the NBA this season, and I will tell you why. For first off, in the first quarter of that encounter, we saw how they displayed 29. They won that one 31-29 in the second quarter. Went on break, came back, scored 39. 32 as against the Utah Jazz, and then we also saw them 25 20. That was a draw, but somehow they went on 128, 113. Let's go back to the standings now and let's compare and contrast the level of play. Why Cleveland Cavaliers have to get this particular one? You won't be surprised at all to know that Cleveland Cavaliers are seated top in the Eastern Conference. I'm sure you are not surprised if you have been following what is happening in the NBA. They've been very fantastic. They've had 26 wins so far this season. They've lost just 4 games, so they are always formidable. And a lot of changes have come in recent time. We saw what played out in that encounter, how they were able to get themselves, into that game. And I'll tell you how good they have been. Some of the players for them are not doing bad at all. Ivan Mobley, Sam Mary, we have Jarrett Bell, and the biggest of them who scored the maximum point that they were yesterday was Darius Garland. He scored 23 points, 8 assists, and 3 rebounds in that one, in that order. Other players, Ivan Mobley, like I said, scored 22 points. We also saw 22 points from Donovan Mitchell, scored 22 points in that particular one, 7 assists and 3 rebounds. As compared to Utah Jazz, the obvious high scorer generally, Laurel McCanny, scored 26 points, but that was not enough to rescue that win for his side, Utah Jazz, because he just had 1 assist and 7 rebounds. Arguably, that's a very good play. And then we also saw a certain Jordan Clarkson, who overall scored 27 points to, he has the highest point, in that encounter. But all these points did not materialize to them winning. They still lost that game, 124-113. So you ask yourself, what was the missing link? Some players like Mitchell Porter, these players were not outstanding on the day. There's players like Johnny Jonas, players like Colin Sastin also did well, scored 24 points, but that was not that was not it all. Let's take a look at where the Utah Jazz they themselves are lagging in terms of the standing. Let's go back to the standing and see where the Utah Jazz are seated in the conference. For Utah, in the Western Conference, they are not, I said they are seated 14th as compared to the first. So you see the discrepancy. They have won just 7 games and lost 21, including the one they lost to the Cleveland Cavaliers in the early hours of today. But let's go back to other games that we saw. Apart from that game played in the Rocket Fieldhouse in Cleveland, we also saw another game. Orlando Magic played against Boston Celtic, and they were 4 points better off than Boston Celtic, in Orlando. The Care Center saw 18,846 basketball spectators who came out to watch that encounter, and it was magical for Orlando Magic. Another team to look at this moment is a team like Philadelphia 76ers. For Philadelphia 76ers, they also had good players, outstanding players, but San Antonio Spurs gave them a very strong run for their money in today's game, and somehow they were able to pass through at the Wells Fargo Center, where we saw 19,986. Now, these are spectators. I mean, it's difficult to get less than this, except in some circumstances, okay, because in the US, more of the fans there are basketball enthusiasts, and so this Utah period, you're getting to see more, and these are ticket sales. I mean, my ticket that enhances the activities of the club. So for me, I just leave it at that level. But let's move on and let's talk about other games that we saw. If you look at the standings and look at the way Philadelphia 76ers are going about their activities, you want to believe with me that it's also very possible to get to see them, move on higher, in the rankings. But maybe at this point, they have not been very fantastic. They've won just 10 games, lost 17 games so far this season. And if you plus or minus, you think that more is needed if they must move on to that side. And in that game that we saw, clearly the Sixers are also, tried their best, held on to that game, and they also tried to put more blocks, more lovely encounters, pushed so hard to get the needed victory. And somehow, sometimes it is even difficult if you are not strong enough to get past a Warrior. But like I said, these games do not come the way it is. Not every time you get to win. So Sixers seated in 12th in the Eastern Conference. More is desired if they must get to the level that they want to be this season. But one thing also very outstanding is to know that they themselves are also in for something big. Like that game that they played against the Spurs, 1-6 I think that we need to, okay, let's look at that. That game we saw, yes, they were able to, they came out top, but that was not enough for them. As compared to San Antonio Spurs, who have won just 15 and lost 14. So it's just one game differentiating them. That means they need to do a lot. They themselves are also languishing in the Eastern Conference. And then, of course, we saw that game. It was a very lovely time for Caesars. We saw some of the big guys. Andre Drummond, was not in that game at all, although he played, but just had just 2 points. Imagine. The biggest was Trexis Mazi, who scored a 32 points in that encounter. And, of course, we also talk about Yabusele, who also scored a 17 points, 2 rebounds, 2 assists, and 4 rebounds. As compared to Spurs, the biggest was Victor Wembanyama, who scored 26 points in that one, 26 points and 9 rebounds and 4 assists. So massive expectation for San Antonio Spurs, but then they still faltered. Okay, they could not hold the powers of the Sixers because they lost that particular one. Just 5-point margin between them, but you want to still say that it was a good game for the both sides, regardless of how far it finally panned out. So away from that, let's talk about the game between Atlanta Hawks and Minnesota Timberwolves. That game was played at the State Farm Arena in Atlanta, and carefully we saw 17,151 spectators in that encounter, and it went the way of the Hawks because they were very fantastic. In the first quarter, it was 35-19 points. The second quarter, 17-36. They lost that one, and it was a draw, 30-30 in the third quarter before Atlanta came back and then got 35 points as to the 19 of Minnesota Timberwolves, and so that ensured that they won. Otherwise, when they lost, that margin, 17-36 in the second quarter, that would have really bridged the gap. But somehow they came back in that encounter and got the needed point in the fourth quarter, and that ensured that they move on straight to the next side. Another team we'll talk about this evening is Miami Heat against Brooklyn Nets. On a good day, this is a big game. The reason is simple, because we have the big boys, showcasing their skills, especially from Miami, and some of the big guys, displayed. If you watch that game, or if you follow that game carefully, you know that some of the guys, had a standing play, and they also want to showcase what the stuff they were made of. And that game did live up to expectation at some point, because the Heat, yes, 110 as against 95, but that was not all the story. If you follow the game carefully, you'll see how far the guys played. Bam Adebayo scored 23 points in that encounter, 7 assists and 7 rebounds for his team, Miami Heat. I think he was the biggest scorer on the day as compared to Net. Net, we also had some guys, but none of them even got 20 points and above. The highest was Cameron Johnson and then Noah Clowney, who posted 19 points, but for Clowney, he posted 19.5 rebounds and 1 assist. So look at other players like Keelan Johnson, talk about other players like Clarkson. So these are players that did so well, but they were not magical enough as to shut down the firepowers of Tyro Hero for Miami Heat, Duncan Robinson, other players like you talk about Nikola Jokic. These are players who, although Jokic himself was not so fantastic in the game, like I said, it was Bam Adebayo who scored those 23 points and 7 assists and 7 rebounds in that one, and that was the highest we saw in that game between Miami Heat and Brooklyn Nets. Surprisingly, Miami have won just 12 games this season. And so you'll be asking, what is happening? Why are some of the teams expected to move high and doing the needful as compared to Brooklyn Nets, who have won 11 games and lost 18 games this season? So you plus it and minus, and then you just know how to balance the play. But it's lovely to get to see some of these results sometimes, so that you know that a lot is happening. Let's go back to the result, and let's talk about what happened between Thunders and then the Wizards. We also saw that particular one. Oklahoma City Thunders doing so well in the league this season. They've won 23 games so far. They've lost only 5, as compared to Washington Wizards. They play one of the least side, in the league. The Washington Wizards have lost 23 games and won just 4. And if you obviously, even on paper, you will predict that Thunder will be very fantastic on the day, and they live up to expectation. 123-105. It ended in that encounter, and guess the players that did the magic for the Thunder. We saw Shai. That was a history-making event for him. Had 9 rebounds and 3 assists. He was on fire all through in that encounter. And we also saw other players like Jalen Williams, who also did so well for Oklahoma City Thunders. For the Wizards, we saw Jordan Poole. Jordan Poole was also very fantastic individually. He was able to master 31 points in that game, 3 rebounds and 7 assists. But that was not just it. A lot also transpired. And I can tell you that, as I say, the rest is history. A lot of preparation, a lot of anticipation. One thing I know is that you need to be at your best if you want to get something in the NBA. The NBA is for the big boys, and you must live up to expectation every match day. Let's go back to the scores, and let's talk about the game between New York Knicks and Toronto Raptors. Toronto Raptors are doing badly, so badly in the Eastern Conference, and I mean they get a lot of talking points every match day because they are not living up to the expectation that is desired of them. They even lost to the New York Knicks 139-125 in that game that was played at the Madison Square Garden in New York. And that game we saw 19,812 spectators, who came out to watch that encounter. 30-20, 28, 40-24 in the first and second quarter, 41-30, 28-43. That was how the game panned out in the first to the fourth quarter. And of course, it went the way of the New York Knicks. And if you look at the way they have gone so far, you won't be surprised because they have been very fantastic in the NBA this season. So far, you look at the happenstance and you tell yourself that these guys are just in for something very big. One thing I know for sure is that if you want to live up to expectation, you must be able to pull out string of wins. And for New York Knicks, you look at where they are seated in the Western Conference. They are not doing badly at all. You expect that they will even, move further and further. And I expect them to continue to blaze on. Third in the Eastern Conference, just behind the Boston Celtics. They have 119 games so far this season as compared to 10 losses that they've had. So possibly, if they continue to blaze on like this, we might get to see them even achieving more in the league. But let's talk about Chicago Bulls and the Milwaukee Bucks. 91-112. It ended in that encounter. And the Bucks had to go away from home at the United Center to pick that vital point. Away from that, we'll talk about another result we saw. Memphis Grizzlies were in fantastic form. They played that encounter and they were able to get, they tried to get the win against Los Angeles Clippers, but that was not to be seen. We saw at the FedEx Forum, 17,265 spectators who came out to watch this particular one too, but unfortunately for the Grizzlies, they lost to the Firebars of the Los Angeles Clippers, who clipped their wings at home ground there. And of course, we also have other results of games that we saw. Oklahoma City Thunders, I talked about that one against Washington Wizards. Denver Nuggets, another beautiful game against Phoenix Suns. The Denvers, they did so well at the Ball Arena. You always know that when it comes to the Ball Arena, you have to dig deep to get a particular one. They are the defending champions, and a lot of belief is that they can hold on. But can they? Seated so far a fifth, in the Western Conference, maybe just to pick a ticket and qualify for the playoffs. But somehow they are not. You expect them to be moving on, but that's not what we've seen so far this season. Because Doncic is one player that you expect to always blaze on. 117-90. That game was not. It was a very tough one, but the players live up to expectation. Nikola Jokic scored 32 points in that particular one. I think he was the highest in that game. Yes, he was the highest. He posted the highest point as to help these players at home get to win that encounter. We also saw some lovely display from other players like Aaron Gordon, Michael Porter. These are players who we were outstanding, posted maximum points, in that encounter. For Suns too, they had lovely players like Kevin Durant, posted 23 points, but that was not enough. Bradley Beal also posted 23 points, but they did not have massive players who posted double figures double digits, to ensure that they raise the point margin between the both. But they lost that particular one to Denver at the Ball Arena. Denver somehow for Phoenix, they need to do a whole lot if they must get back to winning ways. And then let's look at other results before we go on a short break. Golden State Warriors lost at home to Indiana Pacers in the early of this morning at the Chase Center, where 18,064 delegates we are in for this one. One will be wondering how this goes. One thing very striking is that for the Golden State Warriors, they have some of the best leg, so you expect that they will always turn out every match day. But sometimes they say you don't have to, you can't eat a cake and have it back. Some of them are in for something big, and they need to be at their best every time. And that game, like I said, 105, we would have expected more. The players did not just come up meet up to expectation, but we had a very good one from Jonathan Kumigan, who posted 26 points in that particular one. Pacers also did not have any player who scored more than 20 points, but they had team of players who scored 15, 16, 13 points. For example, we saw Miles Turner scored 23 points, posted the highest point for the Pacers, and that helped Indiana Pacers get that maximum win. Again, those 6 point difference between the GSW, who have won 15 games this season, lost 13, and then for Indiana Pacers, they've won 15, also lost 15 games this season. So, you look at the opponents in the NBA, it just tells that this season will be a cracker as compared to other seasons. The Los Angeles Lakers, they themselves played against the Detroit Pistons in the Crypto.com Arena, their home ground, and they were able to display in fine fashion. But Detroit Pistons seated in the Eastern Conference, not doing badly though. But I would have expected Los Angeles Lakers to pull the string, but then they lost that particular one. In the game that we saw, the big guys who showcased their skill in that particular one, they were not able to pick maximum points at all. That's 3 point differentiating in both sides. That means LeBron James scored 28 points in that encounter. I think that was the highest we saw in that encounter. We also saw Gabe Vincent also played that particular one. We saw Anthony Davis posted 19 points, in that one, but that was not enough. When a player like LeBron scored 28 points, 11 assists, and 11 rebounds, one would expect other players to live up to expectation. If they had that 3-point margin, that can be very painful. If you lose just 3 points or just 1 point or over time, losing those margin can be very, very distracting. But these are some of the happenings in the NBA. So in the NBA, we can tell you that the big guys are still topping the table, and you're asking, is it the regular big guys that we know? No, not at all. But somehow in the Western Conference, Oklahoma City Thunders are pushing on. 23 wins so far, 5 losses for them, and they're not doing badly. Houston Rockets are seated second in the Western Conference with 20 points, 9 losses, and the Memphis Grizzlies not doing badly at all, seated third in that particular one. They've won 20 games and lost 10. The Dallas Mavericks are fourth with 19 wins so far and 10 losses, and then the Denver Nuggets are other teams that are not doing badly at all. So when you put plus or minus what is happening, it tells you that a lot of anticipation preparation for this one. One thing very interesting is to note that these players are not, they play every two days, so a lot of preparation. In the Eastern Conference, the Cleveland Cavaliers, they themselves are not taking it easy at all in any bit. They are seated top with 26 wins and 4 losses for them this season. Boston Celtics, defending champion, Boston Celtics, who won last season's edition, are not also doing bad at all. And the season second, and a lot of people will tell you that when the jungle matures, you get to see Boston Celtics coming out, to push further and maybe get something from them. But let's keep our finger crossed. It's the Utah period. A lot of NBA, basketball games in the NBA, and many more that we're going to see as time progresses. But no one would have believed that the New York Knicks will be in the 3rd position right now. Orlando Magic are not also doing badly at all, even the Milwaukee Bucks. So these are some of the actions that we have seen from the NBA. We're going on a short break now. When we come back, we'll talk football matters Of course, we still have many discussions on today's edition of the show.
From the lines across the ocean to the land beyond the mountains, through the Sahara, we bring all the sport news, live analysis, expert discussion.
All right, welcome back. If you're just joining us, this is the Sports Extraordinary here on Atlantic Television Network, and of course, we have we've talked about the NBA and a lot, and also talked about something that transpired. A good news coming from tennis as we prepare for the first Grand Slam of the year 2025. We have Katie Buta, the Britain, and then a certain the Briton, and then we have the Australian Alex de Minaur. They have formally engaged, and that's the right path to marriage. So then they said it's been a little secret that they've kept for each other. And finally, they announced their engagement yesterday via the Twitter platform. Congratulations to them. We hope to see them, achieve more together in tennis. But let's start from the Nigerian Premier Football League, where a lot of football actions are in. Yesterday in the league, we saw the promised keepers, that is Aqua United, dispatch their opener at Heartland of Owerri at the Gospel like Pablo said on Tuesday. It ended in favor of the guys from Uyo, and you know why? They need to get that win because they themselves are dangling within the relegation waters, and certainly that result would have been very interesting. Let's also take a look at some of the happenings in the MPFL, where some teams have not lost at home ground this season, and of course those teams are in the a lot of talking points like Eyimba Football Club, teams like Economy Warrior. They've not lost at home. Teams like Remo Stars. These are teams that are yet to lose at home this season. And then they have had, and some of these teams have had to go away from home and get maximum points. But somehow, we need to, as we coast down to the last match of the first phase of the league this season, you want to think that this team has really been very invisible in the various home. For the Rivers United, I think they have lost once. Yes, they were defied at home at Adoki and Messimaka. Otherwise, they would have also been part of the teams that have not lost at home. But let's move away from that and let's talk about the CAF Award. We are newly crowned African Player of the Year. Ademola Lookman is talking tough, and he's saying that he needs to do more. Marked his return with a bang, scored a goal against Empoli, to ensure that his team sits at the summit of the Serie A as the year comes to a close. That game was played at Giwi Stadium, and before that game, he paraded the trophy. It was a lovely time getting to see him with that tells you a player who is in for something big, and his impressive performance also helped to rise his stock with his value, jumping from 30 million euros at the end of last year to 55 million euros as at now. So he's now the most valuable player behind Victor Osimhen. That tells you how far his stock has risen in the transfer market. FIFA came out with something very dramatic, and they made an announcement that it had implemented an interim regulatory framework regarding players' transfer following a ruling earlier this year by the European Court of Justice in a case involving Lassana Diarra. Now, the decision comes just over a week before the January transfer window opens and follows close. Consultation with key stakeholders, the Global Football Governing Body said in a statement, these changes pertain to Article 17 of FIFA regulations governing the status and transfer of players. The aim is to ensure clarity and stability ahead of the upcoming registration period while maintaining global uniform rules, it added. In October, the European Court of Justice ruled that certain FIFA transfer rules were incompatible with European Union laws on freedom of movement. The ruling sided with Diarra, a former France midfielder, and the case dates back to 10 years ago, as August 2014, when Lokomotiv Moscow terminated Diarra's contract, accusing him of contractual breaches. The Russian club also demanded 20 million euros, equivalent to 17.2 million pounds, in compensation from Diarra, now age 39. So the European Court of Justice is saying no. I mean, it negates the law that guides players, moving ahead, and it cannot restrict players from their movement. Sorry about that. And so FIFA is saying we need to look at these laws and ensure that transfer activities aligns with the status that we have said. But more talking point and more development stories will emanate, because I'm not sure the clubs are willing, or somehow the decision of the club is in tandem with what we have just seen. But let's move away from that. Let's talk about Arsenal Football Club. Arsenal winger Bukayo Saka is said to miss several weeks, no doubt, being sidelined after he suffered a knee injury during the Gunners' emphatic 5-1 victory over Crystal Palace on Sunday. Mikel Arteta has come out to explain that this is a devastating news for his side when he was having a press briefing, preparing for the game between themselves and Ipswich Town. And it's even more very painful that not just Bukayo Saka that will go on this injury break. Also, Raheem Sterling will also miss several weeks after a knee issue, and this further depletes Arteta's right flank in the attacking phase. So, if I were him now, I would start thinking of what are the options, who are the options that we can use to model the team. And still talking about the English Premier League, a lot of persons have come out to really talk about Pep Guardiola. You know why? We have seen the challenge in his team. His team is depleted, injury concern, and he is saying that if those players come back, he can get back to winning ways. But it is becoming something disturbing. The club are yet to react. They still have faith in him. Pep Guardiola still believes in his players, but somehow they have lost 9 matches in the last 12 games, and this is hard to believe. If you look at how far they have gone, at the end of October, City were still unbeaten at the top of the English Premier League table. So, what is the challenge? How come they have fallen so far? In fact, a lot of persons touted them to win a 5th consecutive English Premier League. But at this point, do you think they can come back at the time when even the league leaders are not holding on strongly? They're having inconsistent result. Maybe Liverpool, it seems to be one of the fantastic side. Yeah, Chelsea also going down their neck, but it looks as though a lot will be done if we must see something, if we must see a change, from that side. But one thing very striking is that we need to be. Pep will need to be at his best. It's been a very incredible fall for him, from grace that has led people to trying to see what he can do. Ideas are no longer working in that side, and of course, after discussing how to move on, it looks like he himself is even tired of the whole thing. But he said that he has given it a lot of thought, and he has not been sleeping very well. He also said that for him, he has been talking to the media so that to believe that things can work out well. But when you are falling this way, it tells a lot. But like I said, Pep is a master tactician. Hopefully he will come back, rejig the side. Is it Rodri that is the problem? Maybe go back to the transfer market, pick some players, and see what to do to beef up those squad. But a lot of people will think that those guys have achieved it all, and there is no motivation to move on with the club. Well, we'll keep that for Pep. Pep knows what to do, and I'm sure January is very close now. He needs to go back to the fund, get players. They sold a lot of players, you know, in the summer, and they got just one player, Sabinho. I expect that they go back to the market, beef up the squad with some of the players, and let's see what they can do. But let's still talk about what is happening in the league. And this time around, we'll go to the Turkish Super Liga, where Fenerbahce manager Jose Mourinho is set to undergo surgery in Portugal due to a health issue. The 61-year-old has come out to say that although a lot of persons have been talking about the surgery as a big issue, he has come out to say no, that this is just a minor issue, and that he hopefully will get over it. Another time, this is not the best time, but we empathize with him, and we hope that he will go and come back, you know, and he will be fine. We want the manager to be safe. He said he's the special one, he's the only one, and you know how Mourinho is. One man who is very lauded when it comes to talking. Let's move on with other stories that we have this evening. I will bring you more. Christmas is tomorrow, and so a lot of happenings in sports. But I can tell you that in La Liga, this is a period where coaches have been sacked. Valencia have sacked head coach Ruben Baraya yesterday after a 5-match winless streak in the La Liga Santander. They are currently being threatened because they are hovering around the relegation zone. 6-time Spanish champion Baraya was a pivotal